Last December, when I released my latest course on Udemy, Power Automate for PowerApps developers, in one of the lectures, we were talking about exchanging complex data between PowerApps and Power Automate. And to get the results from Power Automate and bring it to PowerApps, I used the response request, basically the HTTP response action to get the results. One of the comments that I got from one of my students was, Ali, why are you using this premium control and not using the respond to PowerApps or a flow? And well, to my surprise, like, where did that come from? I didn't even know such a thing existed. I was so comfortable using respond that I didn't even notice that Microsoft has released an action that will probably make your life a whole lot easier without all those complexities of JSON, schemas, and all those things. So I said, okay, you know what? Let me go back and look into that, and I will update this lecture, and I will add that. But after some research, I realized that, no, I'm not going to touch that. Let the response be the regular go-to action that we use for getting the items back or getting any data back from Power Automate and bring it to PowerApps. But that didn't end there, so I decided to put this video together to compare these two actions and show you the difference between the two, and you decide which one you want to choose. Still, my go-to is response request. Now, let's get into it and let's understand the differences between the two. We use these two actions to make a call between PowerApps and Power Automate. So we have an app, and that app needs to call some functionality from Power Automate. So we build a flow, and that flow should have a trigger of type either PowerApps or PowerApps v2. They both work. PowerApps v2 is a little bit newer. If you want to know the difference, I will put a video right here. Just click on it and watch so you can understand the difference between the two. Regardless, when the flow is created using PowerApps v2, PowerApp can make the call to this flow. And if flow chooses to return a value to the app, we will use respond to PowerApp or flow action, and this action will return the values to the app. For example, you have an app that sends my name to Power Automate flow, and this guy will say, for example, hello Ali Raza, and returns the values to the app. Not always, it's so silly, but you got the point. Now, response does exactly the same thing. The only difference is that, first of all, this guy is not that straightforward and it's not that easy to use, although it is easy by itself. The other thing is that this guy is not free. And the third part, that response is not specifically designed for PowerApps. This response can be used for any web API call. So basically, if you are making a flow that has the web API or REST API interface, and it will handle everything that a REST API or a web API needs to support. Regardless, we can use either one of them when we make a call from PowerApps to Power Automate. And today we want to discuss why we need to pay some extra fee for this one, while this one is standard. Now, spoiler alert, if you have the Power Automate Premium license, or if your client has Power Automate Premium license, go with response. Don't even look back into this one. It's not worth it. Otherwise, stay with me to the end of this video. Now, let's go to Power Automate and create a flow that can be called from PowerApps, and we will use both these actions to compare the results. So I click on Instant Flow, and I can use either PowerApps or PowerApps v2. I do not use PowerApps, and I want to call it PowerApps Response Demo. Did I pick PowerApps v2? I didn't. Click on Create, and that's it. Let's assume that this app accepts one name, and that first name is coming to this app. This app is going to create a variable. So let's create initialize variable. The variable name is going to be hello name, and type is going to be a string. And all I'm going to do, I want to say hello space, and I add the first name right after that. And that's it. I just save it, And now this flow should be able to return this entire thing to the PowerApps that makes a call to this flow. Of course, it doesn't need to be as simple. You may have 15 different steps in between before you get to the return value. I just keep it as simple as I possibly can here. So I click on New Step, and I use Respond, and I pick Respond to PowerApp or Flow, right? And now, for the return value, I can add return parameters. So I can say, I have a text, and this is going to be hello message. And the value it's going to return is going to be my hello name. I just save it. Everything is good. We can test it here. Manually test. First name, I put Ali Reza, and I click on Run Flow. Done. It says the job is complete. Let's check the response, and the hello message is going to be hello Ali Reza. Great. So this one works at least inside Power Automate. Now let's call it from PowerApps. So if we go to PowerApps and I create a new Canvas app from blank, Power Automate call test. Right? I click on create. Just make sure that this guy is saved. Come back here, and I want to add a button here maybe. Insert button, and this button is going to be btn_hello, right? And, well, text is going to be hello. And when someone clicks this button, on select, I go to the action, I pick the Power Automate, and I will find PowerApps Response Demo. Okay? And this guy accepts my first name or anybody's first name. I say, for example, Ali Reza. I close this, and it returns a value. If I just put a dot in front of it, you will see that it has a parameter called hello message, which is exactly the parameter that I added here. Right? This guy. Great. So now if I go back to my PowerApps, if I pick this hello message, I can put it in a variable, right? Set var_hello, comma, and I close the bracket here. I just save it, and I go back to the app itself. All right, if I want to see the content of this variable, I just need to put a text label here on the screen. Label, let me just put this guy here. And for the text, I put the var hello, which is blank at the moment. But if I run this guy and I click on this hello, it makes a call to that flow and returns the message from the flow. Fantastic. As you can see, it's very easy to work with. Now, this is where the fun starts. So be patient and wait for it. Let me just close this one, and I go to the Power Automate again. I want to create another flow. Again, another instant cloud flow, and I call it add numbers, right? And I scroll down and I pick PowerApps V2 again, and I click on create. All right. This time I want to add two numbers. So I call it, for example, num1. I add another number, and I call it num2, right? Great. Now, this time, I want to add these two numbers and put them in a variable. So I click on New Step. Again, I look for initialize variable, right? And I call it sum of numbers. And let me just rename this guy again. I'm following exactly the same steps, but this time I'm passing numbers. This is going to be an integer, and the value inside it is going to be sum of those numbers. So I use the expression add, and I pick num1, comma, num2, right? I can save it, And then I can say new step, respond, and I scroll down and I will find the respond to a PowerApp or Flow, right? I say add an output, and this time I pick a number because the sum is number, and I call it, for example, sum, and the value that it's going to return is going to be sum of numbers, right? Save it. Great. I can click on test. Again, I can test it. This is one of the issues that I see once in a while. It doesn't pick both those numbers, although I have two parameters here, as you can see. I have num1 and num2. Don't understand why. Let's remove them again and add them. Delete, delete. Let's call it, for example, n1 and another number n2. I click on save again. Now I need to go to initialize some of those numbers, and I come here, and again, I use add. I open the bracket. I click on dynamic content. Let me just scroll down here. I have n1, comma, n2, right? And again, okay. This time I come back here again, and I pick the sum of numbers again. So logically, it should be good, right? Even if it works, it doesn't make any sense because I just put two different names here for the input parameters. So let me click on test, and I click on test. This time I accepted that. Fantastic. That's great. So 12 and 11, I click on run flow, done. Expand, 23, 23, sum, everything is good, right? So this flow technically works. Now, let's try to call it from the app. So far, we have seen one tiny glitch. Now let's take it here. I click on another button, and this button, I want to call it btn underscore sum, right? And text is going to be sum. And let me just put another label here. And this label, I want to call it lbl underscore sum, right? Just like before, I want to make the call to that flow. This time using this button. So I click on Actions, I click on Power Automate, and I pick Add Numbers, right? Okay, now it actually has two numbers as parameters. Great. So n1, we pick n1 as, for example, 12. The other number that I have, I use 13, for example, and I close this. Again, the return parameter that I have is sum. Perfectly comes here. Now I can add set, just like I did before. I use var, for example, sum, which is my variable. And hopefully, after I push this button, the sum should get into this variable, right? Great. So let me just put this var sum here, and let's make this call. I run this, click on sum, ta-da, it doesn't come. Not only that, if I just come back here and I pick this guy and I click on var sum, it shows it's blank, although the call was successful. I can even come back here and show you the call log here, right? It is just 26 seconds ago, so this is just the call that I made, and I can even open it, and you see it has the value, but for some odd reason, it doesn't get to PowerApps. I hope by the time you see this video, Microsoft does something, but all I'm trying to say, seems like this control, it's free for a reason. But let's assume that it works well. Let's assume that it's perfectly fine, it accepts the values, and it works as it's supposed to, right? Look at this. The types that it can return are limited to text, yes, no, file, email, number, date. What if I want to return a table? What if I want to return an array? Well, yes, you can convert it to text and return it as a text parameter. And then on the other side, when you receive it inside PowerApps, then you have to jump through a few hoops and convert it into object. Now, let's see if we can make this guy work if we use response instead of this new fancy action that we used first. So we go back to our flow. I just get rid of this guy, and I say delete. I add my response here. And I pick this response, and for the body of this message, I say sum. Here, it's not that fancy visual UI. You have to write your JSON code. So I say the sum is going to be the sum of numbers that I get from there, right? I just get a copy of it because this guy also needs a schema. So I say generate from sample. I paste this guy here, but instead of this variable that I have here, I need to put a number. For example, anything that Power Automate can grab a schema of it, because at the end we want to return a property called sum with a number inside it. So I click on done, and it just does the job, right? Now I click on save. So basically, as you can see, the only difference is that here you need to put all your structure in the body as a JSON object, and you also need to create a schema for it, which it does it for you from the sample data. We save this guy, and then let's go back to PowerApps. This time again, I get rid of this guy now. I pick my sum. I click on Power Automate this time. And this time, again, I click on Add Numbers. Right? Again, I pass two numbers, for example, 12 and 11, for example. I close this, and if I put the dot here, it shows me the sum that I can use it. And then again, I put everything inside a variable called var sum, comma, and I close this bracket, right? Just make sure that the other variable name is matching. Great. So let me just run this guy, and I click on sum, and this time it gives me the result. So this guy doesn't have any problem. Every single time that I use this, it worked perfectly. Now you see a little bit of potential here. So let's say this guy is pretty much the same thing. You know the difference between a man and a boy? Some people say the difference between a man and a boy is just the price of their toys. Well, I think it's fair to say that response is something that is made for men, and this guy is for boys. Now let's see what this guy can do that this guy cannot. Let me just close this guy, and I want to create another flow. Now here, I have a SharePoint list. I want to create a flow that goes to SharePoint list and gets the products related to one selected category that user provides, and then sends me an array of those items. So basically an array of objects in JSON that I can directly use it inside PowerApps. These are the things that your standard action does not do. Let's do it here. So I go back here and I want to create a new flow. I click on Instant Cloud Flow and I say, get products in category, right? I scroll down and I click on PowerApps v2 and I click on Create. There is only one parameter that I want to pass here, and I want to call it category, right? Then I want to go to SharePoint, and from inside SharePoint, I want to use getItems. So it makes a connection to my SharePoint, so basically anything that I have permission to. I go back to my SharePoint, I get the URL of this site, and I just paste the value here. The list name that I want to pick is called Products List Demo, right? Products List Demo. And I want to use a filter. So I would say filter query is going to be, the field that I have here is category, is equal to whatever that comes from PowerApps. If you're using OData query, if you're not familiar with OData and you want to know about it, I put a link right here. I have another video that explains the OData and how you can use it inside Power Automate. Regardless, I save it and we are good. So basically at the moment when I use getItems, it gets only the items that they have the category that user has requested. Then right after that, I can send it back to the client the way it is, or I do it a little bit better. So I want to use select. And for the select, I can say get the values from the get items, so whatever that it returns. And inside this, I want to use ID. And here, I use the expression item dot ID. I click on OK. And for the other parameter, I want to say title. And here again, I use another expression and I say item dot title. And I click on OK. So now, out of whatever that this get items returns that contains lots of columns, the result of this select will only have the ID and the title. Let's quickly save and test it and see what it returns, right? One of the categories that we have is electronics. So let's get back here and test it manually. And the parameter that I want to add here is going to be electronics. And I click on Run Flow. Done. Okay. So let's go to the select, and you will see it returns laptop, microphone, Rubik's Cube, USB is Rubik's Cube, electronics. Gosh, I put Rubik's Cube as electronics. Great. Okay. So this guy is okay. And it returns me a simple array like this that I can directly return using response. Let me get a copy of it because I need the schema, remember? I close this one and I click on edit and I add a new step. This time I will use response, right? And I click on response. Now, the body that this guy needs to return is going to be a JSON object. I will call it products. And right in front of it, I get the output from the select, which is a complete array of objects. And I put them inside one property, right? So basically, when I say show advanced options and I want to create schema for it, I can say generate from sample. I can put brackets here. I can say products, column, and I can just paste whatever I got from there in front of it, right? So I have products, and in front of the products, I have an array of products that it can return. I click on done, and it generates the schema for me. Fantastic. Let me just save it. Moment of truth. So let's go to PowerApps and test it. This time, I want to add another button here. Insert button. I put this guy here, and I call it btn underscore get products. Right? And the text is going to be get products. All right. Now, when I click on get products, I go to actions again. Just like before, I click on Power Automate, and I say get products in category. It adds the run method there just like before. And here, I need to add the category. For example, again, electronics. Spelling is correct. All right. Now, this guy returns something called products. I can put this products directly inside a variable, right? Var underscore products, comma, and I close this bracket. So all the products that this function call returns goes into a variable, and hopefully we can examine that. So if I click on get products, it runs, but we don't see it on the screen yet. But this guy is a table, and if I expand it, you will see it has the IDs and titles. Now you want to load it into, for example, a dropdown. See how cool things get. I go to Insert, and for the input, I, for example, pick a dropdown. For the items that this dropdown is going to show, instead of this dropdown sample, I pick var products. How cool is that? I just got the output from the call to Power Automate and assign it directly to a dropdown. Not only that, if you want to use data table, gallery, or everything else that you want. And this kind of capability is something that you pay for. So if you have the license to use this guy, you probably never go back to this. If not, well, that's a poor man's response action. So the bottom line is that response, you pay for it, but it is a lot more reliable than this guy and a lot more flexible. With this guy, you can basically return whatever you want, and it will cover you to any level that is possible. Just throw any JSON in your response, and you will get results on the other side. While this one, you are stuck with some simple data types. All right. Before anything, please push that like button if you have watched this video up to this point, because I know if you are watching it up to here, definitely you like it. Then I want you to go to the comments section and tell me what you think, because I personally leaning towards response, and I say, oh, you know what, forget about the other one. I don't want to even bother dealing with something that is still clunky. Forget about functionality. Still there are glitches. Still there are some unexpected results that I need to dig into it and find my workaround, while response always worked the way that I was expecting. So I want to know what you think. Yes, I understand when you have big number of users, the cost of licensing can be sometimes even astronomical, but well, reliability comes first to me rather than, okay, let's work around with the glitches or anything else that is there. In the end, thank you for watching, and this is the first video in 2022. I wish all of you a wonderful new year with lots of code, lots of flows, and lots of premium licenses. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.